recording. Okay. So Girl Wash Your Face. So is this the first time that you've read it?
Yeah. So I got the audible version of it, and I'm almost done with it. And so I went out and got the book as well because I thought that was a great idea to start, because I love highlighting and I love going back through it. And sometimes when I'm listening in the car, sometimes I'm not completely, you always miss a few details, but yeah, it's been great. I love it.
It is. It really is. I listened to it initially. I think it came out like in February or something of this last year. And I listened to it. I was doing 80-Day Obsession, and right before we went to Mexico in April, and I finished it like that week before, and I listened to it on Audible. And it was like I would find an excuse to go drive around so I could listen to it in my car. Because at home, like, my kids are interrupting, and I rarely get a chance to just sit down and read and not be interrupted, even when kids are in bed and, husband's around. It's like, I don't want to take away from him, but so, to and from the kids' school. And I think I got through the whole Audible in a matter of like 5 days or something. It was, just like a sponge, because it's just, there's so many things that need to be said in the book that, like, we all know, but like, we don't like turn on that thought, or we kind of dismiss it. And I love her intro, how she talks about, like, just being a girl in the bookstore picking up that book, and like, what can I do that's going to speak to somebody, and just how she like pours her heart out. And I take notes and stuff, but just how she's like, you're responsible for who you are, for who you're going to become. And if you're not happy, that's on you, and like, that's just like kind of a gut punch, because it's like, when you're not happy, not content, as she says, like, how are you going to change that? How are you going to fix it? And I think we're doing a lot of those things, these last 90 days. I think we're doing a lot of them, with better nutrition, with better habits, with staying accountable, and things like that, and putting ourselves first. That was kind of a big takeaway.
Yeah, I do. I really liked how she talked about it being just, it's a lifelong journey. It's not like a destination. And even in the Beachbody workouts, Autumn's always saying stuff like that. It's not just after 80 days. And you're changing those habits. But I do like her very last line where she said, on the days that seem the hardest, you'll remember that by an inch or by a mile, forward momentum is the only requirement. Mm-hmm. And that's so true, because sometimes you're just like, but if I did one thing, if I did one thing, even if I did like 50 things that were taking me backwards, at least if I did one thing that went forward. Yeah. So yeah, it was encouraging.
I wrote that down too, because I think that's so important for all of us to take away, daily, weekly, and, especially in these last 90 days, and from this book, that like, progress is progress, no matter how small. And and if we're continuing to move forward, we're still moving, or even if it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, like, we're still moving forward. And that was really hard for me before I was consistent, was, you work out for a week, and then you have a few bad days, and then you have a few more bad days, and then you're like, well, I gained back whatever. And this is, it's frustrating, but knowing that, like, we can keep going, and it's okay if we stumble, and, it's supposed to be a journey, and it's not supposed to be one of perfection. And, that's boring anyway.
Yeah, I think her frank honesty, and just like how she's like, I'm a Christian, but I screamed at my kids, and I yell at my husband, and I swear, it's like her. I'm like, yeah, I think that you don't hear that. We so much see the Facebook life, you see one snapshot of somebody's 24 hours, and you compare yourself to that, and you're like, wow, I just fall so short. And so I think that's why maybe some of her message resonates quicker. I mean, just right away, you're like, wow, I'm there. I'm right. Yeah. Because she's so transparent with what she thinks her values are. Yeah.
One of my favorite quotes from that book, and like just from her, and when I first listened to it, like I had to pause and like rewind and listen to it again and again and again and like write it down, and I wrote a Facebook post about it too, but where she talks about being a caterpillar, where like a caterpillar is beautiful and a caterpillar is good, but if a caterpillar decided that good was just good enough, then we would never get to experience, you know, the beautiful creature that she would become. And
Right.
And I think as women, that's probably one of our hardest things, is like just feeling good enough, you know, and not feeling like we are capable of more, or because we have, you know, family and, you know, career and so many other things that like we, you know, that's what we do as mothers too. Like we put everybody else first, and it's so hard to like allow ourselves to be so much more and be something more and chase something, you know, chase a passion or chase a dream or chase a goal, and not feel selfish, you know. And like, I remember when I went back to work after my second one was born and she was 12 weeks old, I remember feeling extremely selfish because I had this newborn baby at home, but at the same time, I loved my job and I loved what I did, and that's where I wanted to be, you know. And I felt like a jerk because I'm like, well, gosh, you know, shouldn't I want to be home with my kids? But like at that time in my life, that was what I needed, and I had worked so hard to get to where I was that's where I wanted to be, you know. And like that just, I don't know, like it was very reassuring.
Yeah. I can't remember which chapter it was when she talks about making a promise to yourself. That might be the third one we look at, but that was pretty, she framed it up in such a way that she kind of turned the tables and said, what if someone kept breaking promises to you? And I just went, wow, that's right. Aren't I important enough to keep those promises? And then just to be very selective on what I promise or how I choose to spend my time so I don't break those promises. So I can't.
Yeah, it was in chapter 2, and she like what if your friend continued to cancel on you because they had a TV show that was better than, you know, going out? Like, how would you feel if but yet we continue to break promises to ourselves? And I think like where she talked about like think back to your highest level of achievement or like your biggest success, you know, and like where she was talking about giving up Diet Coke and like would give in after, you know, a week, or same thing with like starting a workout routine. Like, oh, well, if, you know, I've only committed to 2 weeks and then I've allowed myself to fall off, or same thing with sticking to a nutrition plan. That's like, we're training our mind that like we can allow those like slip ups and things to happen, and we never really stay truly committed to ourselves. And I thought that was a really interesting way to think about it, like that we kind of have to challenge our mind, like retrain our mind how to push forward.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And just on that, retrain your mind, also retrain your mind to what you're striving for. So we say I'm not good enough. Well, what's good enough? Or, you know, what is that standard, or what are we, what's gonna, redefining what brings you contentment even, you know, or where you want to. And it's again, it's all about kind of her whole premise for the book is all these lies we believe. If we can retrain ourselves, that just kind of changes the whole game. It changes the whole game. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we were going to try to stop at 3 chapters, and I could just totally dive into like the rest of the book because there's so much good stuff. But for me, I think it's important that I write down and like dissect a little bit at a time, you know, because I consumed it so fast that first time that I like listened to it, that like reading it again is like and like actually reading, like having the copy in my hand and like actually being able to read it and like dog ear pages and stuff. It means a lot more this time because it's like, because I'm understanding a little bit more of what I read. And she just, in her podcast, I don't know if you're listening to her podcast.
Nope, that's one of my goals this week is to find her. Because that would be really good to continue to listen on.
Yeah, so I want to dive into those a little bit more this week in our group too. And a little bit more about the like relationship stuff, because her podcast with her husband is really, really good. And her live videos that they do together and stuff are really, really good too. And I think it's not that common to see a husband and wife together, like sharing the hard stuff and sharing the struggle. Most of the time it's just the woman, and the guy kind of remains silent. And I think having him in there and kind of explaining like,
what's going on there, right?
Yeah, this is how it works for us, and this is like we have the same arguments, we have the same struggles, and I think that's I don't know. I love her stuff. I love what she and her husband are doing, and helping other people like with some of those struggles, like with relationship struggles and stuff like that. So I think we'll dive into that a little bit more in this next week. And I know she touches on relationships a lot in the book. I think that's the next, kind of there's a next little chunk there.
Okay. I did find myself at the end of each chapter when she says things that helped me, and prompting myself to say, hey, what would my action step or where am I at for that little item? And I think it really helped me with my goals this week, even just saying what, and one that was pretty scary for me, which is crazy, and I can't, is, and I put it on my list of goals, was when it says, make a list of what makes you happy. Sometimes as a mom, when you're putting such in, even at work, when you're putting all these things in front of you, and if you do that for long enough, you forget what makes you happy or what brings you joy or what used to, where do you get re-energized. And so I just committed that I'm going to spend some time just kind of brainstorming, like, what do I like? What do I find joy in doing?
Yeah.
Because, and it can change it has changed for me over the course of my life. And then just surrounding yourself with positivity. These challenge groups with the Beachbody, that was something, to me, it was life-changing. The change in my mindset, it was life-changing. The fitness and the nutrition, that was like bonus.
Right.
But I just even, I don't know. It's been an awesome change for me. So this aligns with all of that so well.
Mm-hmm. What she said at the end of chapter 3 about like putting yourself on your priority list, like reorganizing your list and putting yourself on as a priority. And I mean, as much as I talk about self-care and like how important it is that we make time for ourselves, I'm just as guilty as neglecting myself. Or, she kind of hit home when she talks about how she's a workaholic and she had a lot of stress and stuff. And I can feel my anxiety rise, the more that I try to do and the more that I try to take on. And I know that that's a direct correlation to the amount of sleep that I'm not getting. And I have to tell myself, like, okay, you want to stay healthy and you want to stay sane, you got to go to bed a little earlier. You have to do, the things that keep your brain in check. And for me to try to take time, especially on the weekends, to like sit down and say, okay, what am I going to do for myself, today, tomorrow, and throughout this next week, that's not going to, overstimulate me and cause me, to go off the deep end and feel crazy and stuff like that. So, hi. Thank you. You can have it, or you can put it in a bag and you can have it another time. Don't throw it away in the trash down here, please. It's food. Take it upstairs and give it to Grandma, please. Thank you. Just throw the food in the trash in the basement, and then we'll have bugs or something.
We have the same conversations, even with my 17-year-old. So. Mhm.
Well, cool. Well, I'm really glad that that we're doing this, you know, as a big group and stuff. And I'm going to share the recording into the page so that way if anybody wants to kind of go back through and watch it, just share their takeaways after they watch and stuff. And then we'll just do it again next Sunday with, I'll have to look through and see if there's a good chunk of chapters that kind of go together as far as relationships too. So maybe 4 through 7. But yeah. Do you have anything else from the book you want to share?
No, I like you said, slowing down and dissecting. And you know, I've always, my dad always told me, like, if you read a book, if you read an article, like when we used to have magazines, subscriptions a lot, if you take away one idea from like the whole magazine, it was worth it, right? And so I think, you know, I definitely got something from the audio and zipping through it, laughed a ton. I did. I found myself giggling in the car while I was doing it. And then that sex chapter, I had to make sure that it wasn't automatically coming on when I picked up my son. I was like, no, this one can't come on. And I turned off. But then, like, just slowing down and being, because when I'm driving, I'm like, oh, I wish I could write that down, or I wish I could, like, I'm very much, I'm constantly setting goals for myself. My favorite time of year is like the beginning of school, because I feel like that's kind of a calendar reset. And then in the beginning of January, to say, what am I going to do? And so I love that entering the craziest time of the year, we're doing that, because to me, it's just kind of a reset. It's a fresh start, but it's at a crazy time. So I love that. This is good. Yeah. So
awesome. So as far as nutrition and meal planning stuff goes, I haven't printed out my menu yet for the week. I was going to do that and then share that in the group today too, as I'm trying to, like, you know, do the meal planning and stuff like that, and everything else that comes along with it. But nutrition, you know, as we know, and of course this isn't just coming to you, this is coming to anybody who's watching the recording too, it is 80% of our results. And it's something that we let slip first usually, because it's the easiest thing to let go, because it's the easiest thing to, you know, skip the meal prepped lunch and go to the drive-through, or go out to dinner instead of cooking. And, you know, days go by that we haven't made it to the grocery store, and we're stuck with peanut butter and jellies and, you know, all the things like that, that we tend to let slide, and kind of let take over. And for me, it was always something that I thought that I was always eating kind of healthy, if I just at least ate a salad for lunch. You know, mind you, it had, you know, a pound of bacon and a whole bunch of ranch dressing and cheese and stuff. That never really made it that healthy, but it's been a learning process for me. And as far as nutrition goes, I think, you know, it should be a learning process. And there's, you know, a lot of conflicting information out there as far as nutrition goes, that says what you should eat and what you shouldn't eat, and how much of this and count that. And I think that's really confusing for a lot of people, that, you know, you hear about the next best thing, or this fad diet or that fad diet, and everybody wants to jump on the bandwagon because, you know, so-and-so saw this kind of results and somebody else saw those kind of results. But ultimately, I think it comes down to balance and what works for our body. And if we've given something, you know, a good, like, honest 30 days or 6 weeks or 8 weeks, and we're not seeing any kind of changes, that's when we probably need to go back and reevaluate, and make some changes, and kind of tweak some things. And I was talking to a girl yesterday who is, you know, has been doing something for a couple weeks, and she gave me kind of a rundown on her nutrition. And I was like, you're definitely not eating enough. And I think that's something that's really scary for a lot of people, especially if you're working out consistently, that we're not eating enough. And when we're not eating enough, it's totally true that our bodies go into starvation mode and we hold on to additional body fat because our metabolism is like, where's our next meal going to come from? I better hold on to this body fat. So that way, and we store things as body fat. And I think that is something worth mentioning, and something worth for anybody, especially anybody that's struggling with the nutrition piece, is keep a journal for a week, keep a food diary, and literally write down everything that you eat. Because a lot of times, eating that half of, Rice Krispie treat earlier, and, or that piece of, cake that we didn't really write down, like little things like that do add up over time. And I'm not saying that we can't have those things, but if we're not being honest with ourselves about them, then we can't expect to see the changes that we want to see. So as far as nutrition goes, though, it's one of my favorite things to talk about. It's one of my favorite things to share about, to review about, to help other people with, because I'm extremely passionate about finding and having balance. And I'm not going to give up wine, and I'm not going to give up tacos. And if somebody asked me to do that, I would tell them goodbye, because that's just something that, if I'm not going to have a 6-pack because I like wine and tacos, well, that's just something I've learned. I'll take the tacos and wine over the abs. But I think, it does take commitment, and it does take trial and error. And it does take conscious decisions of, meal planning, meal prep, and things like that. And keeping it as simple as possible initially is one of the best ways to have success. And I know, as boring as it is to eat like chicken and broccoli and rice for lunch every day for, a week, it also gets us in the mindset that if I can be consistent with this, I can do this long term, and then I can allow for a little bit of flexibility and kind of add in some different things along the way. So, so my meal planning is very, very basic. A lot of times, my husband and I have done fitness competitions, so we've had very, very, I don't want to say strict, but our meal prep has been very precise a lot of times. And at the same time, we've had meal preps that, we have a lot of variety and stuff in there too. And I'm going to do that crock pot group this week and share a lot of things like that, that we do as far as easy meals and easy dishes. And I think, as somebody who meal preps for themselves, or somebody that meal preps for a big family, small, big family, doesn't matter, that it's when you have kind of a structure, then it makes it that much easier. So yeah, I didn't have a ton of stuff about nutrition and meal prep that I wanted to talk about, but just that, that consistency is important. And if, nutrition tends to slack, to kind of rein it in and say, okay, what can I do, over the course of the next few days, over the course of the next week, to kind of get back to that right mindset. And, whether it's prepping for a week or just prepping for the next 24 hours, and taking that extra time. And it's worth it. And I know that it is time consuming sometimes, but it is worth it. And it's a huge money saver, as we all know, to bring a prepped meal instead of go out to lunch.
I took this off because it's not tablet time.
It's not tablet time, you're right. Thank you. Oh, there's Emily. Hi, Emily.
Put it in here.
Thank you.
So we won't know.
Okay. Hi, Emily. I see you're just getting on. We're just actually getting ready to get off here in just a couple minutes. I don't know if you can hear. Can you hear me? I can't see you. But we were just kind of recapping nutrition and meal planning and prep and stuff. And I'm going to post the recording in the group too.
There she is.
Hi there. How are you?
You're muted.
You're muted. There you go. Hold on, I gotcha.
Thanks. No, my biggest downfall is meal prep and recipes, so I'm all over this.
Yeah. Did you meal prep today, or did you do anything for?
I'm building my my grocery list. I'm hoping my husband will go to the store instead of me because I have like no energy. But I'm hoping that he'll grab some good stuff. So yeah, I'm on board for any cool new recipes you have this week. I need inspiration.
Yeah, so I'm doing a turkey pumpkin chili in the crock pot right now, and then just some of the things that I posted about, just chicken zoodles. I did the pesto one last week or the week before, so I'm gonna
Awesome.
blog a couple things and share those recipes for those. And I'm doing a lot of chicken. I have 2 big frozen bags of chicken in my freezer and I just bought a rotisserie chicken while we were at the store today because it was an easy lunch and I didn't want to come home and meal prep after I went to the grocery store. So I did a rotisserie chicken, but yeah, just some quick, simple things. I'm going to do like a chicken soup in the crock pot as well this week that I'll have in our group and then in the crock pot group as well. And just, extra veggies, adding in a lot of veggies, roasting, I'm going to do a big pan of veggies probably tomorrow night and roast them. And then I'll probably do a pan of chicken and veggies or something later this week. I love those 1-pan meals and those like crock pot. I mean, it's so easy. And the air fryer has been a huge saving grace. So just, like we bought fresh chicken breasts last week and just cut them in half, kind of flatten them out a little bit so they cook a little bit more thoroughly because they cook. If you have a really big, thick chicken breast in the air fryer, it doesn't totally cook that well. Like it crisps up a lot on the outside, and then you have to cook it a little bit longer. So I think that it gets a little drier quicker. So thinning them out and cooking them for a little bit less, I've found is really helpful.
Are you in your apple butter pork chop recipe?
Yeah, I'm going to put that one on the blog too. And yeah, that turned out really, really good. And surprisingly, I did like half sweet potatoes and half butternut squash, and my husband ate all of it and didn't initially realize that it was butternut squash that he was eating. Like he just, everything was kind of just mashed together or whatever. And he was like making a salad and I was like, oh, there's, veggies. And he's like, wait, what? Oh, that was butternut squash? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, oh, I just thought those sweet potatoes were really like mushy. And I'm like, yeah, no, that was vegetables. Like you were eating vegetables. And so I put some butternut squash in the chili that I'm making too. And it kind of purees as it softens. And then my kids get extra veggies and they don't know it. And yeah, they actually ate some of the butternut squash and sweet potatoes and liked it too. I think it's just such a good time of year for that stuff. And I mean, the grocery stores are filled with, all the spaghetti squashes and everything else. And so I'll have a few good ones that I'm going to work on trying to get up and loaded this week. Just from over the last couple of weeks, but yep. And then that Beachbody On Demand blog recipe section. If you go to the blog, like the blog on Beachbody On Demand, there's just a ton of stuff in there. And I love that it has that search feature. So you can search like by chicken recipes or by, steak recipes and stuff like that. So I try to pull from there every week or two just to grab something new or inspiration for something new. So we're not eating the same chicken and rice and broccoli for dinner every night, so yeah, that's about all I have for you gals.
Well, cool. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Emily, I'll share the recording, and we talked a little bit about the first few chapters of Girl Wash Your Face.
Yeah, I'm at the halfway point. So yeah, but it's been a while, so I need to get back to reading it. I've probably already forgotten the first 3 chapters, but I love it. Everybody loves it. There's nobody that doesn't like that book.
Right. I know. I mean, it's just like she just wrote all the things that we've been thinking that nobody's said and put into a book yet. So, and her next one is I've pre-ordered that already, which I don't
come out.
I think it's like March 21st or something. Okay. Girls Stop Apologizing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then we were talking about her podcasts and stuff too. And she's got a lot of goodies. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll let you guys go. Thanks for getting on. And enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Let's have an awesome week together.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.